Welcome to the Colorado Master Gardener Program. I'm Mary Small, your state coordinator, and I'm housed on the Colorado State University campus in Fort Collins. On behalf of all the county and state staff, I want you to know how glad we are to have you with us. We hope that you'll enjoy the learning and the camaraderie that you'll experience with this program. We also hope that you'll enjoy taking what you've learned out into your communities. We'll take a look at what it means to be a Colorado Master Gardener and review some of our program policies and procedures. You'll also be hearing from a few current volunteers, as well as Dr. Tony Frank, CSU's president. So let's get started. All of the readings for the Colorado Master Gardener program can be found in what we call the Garden Notes, which is our curriculum. You can find them by going to the Colorado Master Gardener website, and you can see the address on the screen. From the home page, click on CMG Garden Notes. This takes you to the entire set of our garden notes, although you only see a portion of them on the screen here. For today's class, you can either click on CMG Program Overview, or you can click on the complete set of CMG Garden Notes. Under the CMG Program Overview, you'll find a list of garden notes that pertain to this introductory course. Most of these will be touched upon during the modules, but not everything. So you'll need to view the modules and read the garden notes before completing the worksheet for this class. Material that will be covered in this module will be found in Garden Notes 14, the CMG Program Handbook. You've probably already read quite a bit about the Colorado Master Gardener program, but there are a few things that I'd like to elaborate on. Master Gardener programs are made up of people just like you, citizens that are interested in learning more about horticulture or gardening in their area of the country. They receive this education in exchange for volunteer time spent in educating their communities. Wherever you go in the U.S., you'll find Master Gardener programs affiliated with what is known as a land-grant university. In Colorado's case, it's Colorado State University. In Arizona, for example, it would be the University of Arizona. In addition to being affiliated with the land-grant university, Master Gardener programs are also affiliated with the Land Grants Extension Program. Let's take a closer look at that. The land-grant university system came into existence with the signing of the Morrill Act in 1862, and it involved these two historic figures, Abraham Lincoln and Justin Morrill. Watch the following video about the beginning of land-grant institutions.
You're given such a strong foundation in all the essentials, like all the technical knowledge that you need, and then from there you get inspired to go and do something with that.
Julie attends a land-grant university, an outgrowth of the Morrill Land Grant Act. The inspiration, she feels, dates back to 1862, to a time of courage, vision, and boldness.
So 1862 is such an absolutely fascinating year. I mean, such a year of contrasts. You have the escalation of the war and the bloodiest year of the war, and against that backdrop, you create land-grant universities, a radically different concept. You create the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Homestead Act. There are a whole series of things that stand against conflict-ridden backdrop that really moved the nation forward.
With Confederate troops virtually at the White House doorstep and Northern morale desperately low, Lincoln tried to steer a course for our fractured nation.
That very week, 17,000 troops are killed. He calls up 300,000 volunteers. And in the midst of all that's going on, he still was able to sign one of the greatest pieces of legislation, in my view, to democratize American society.
Look at Lincoln. He was in the middle of a civil war He was trying to build a transcontinental railroad, and he created land-grant colleges all within the space of 18 months.
These are things where they understood that if we invest big time now, we're going to reap the benefits for generations.
The 19th century has all kinds of sorrows, so there's nothing to get too witlessly cheerful about with the 19th century, but they did have an idea of progress.
The ability of Lincoln to see into the future and believing in that future and investing in that future, that's who we are, that's what this is about.
The land-grant system released higher education from the grip of a privileged few and opened it up to anyone with the talent and motivation to succeed.
Before the Land-Grant College Act, if you were a student in higher education, you were a white, male, and you were going to be either doctor, lawyer, or minister. That was it.
I try to imagine myself if I were on my family farm, which was founded in 1853, and how would I have felt if I was a young woman in western Iowa? I would have been able to come to Iowa State with the first class. There were 37 women, and up until that time, most women were not allowed to go to college.
The Transcontinental Railroad and Homestead Acts opened the West, while the Morrill Act opened up a different kind of space for a different kind of education in the United States. An education that was practical and liberal and accessible to the industrial masses.
The Morrill Act in its early days was focused on really critical needs, and that's why many of the early institutions had agricultural and mechanical in their titles.
They wanted people to study things that they actually could apply in society. Those things are very applicable during that particular time period.
You think about how much courage it took Lincoln to find a way to create a system of higher education institutions in every state.
So which university on this list do you think might have been the first land-grant institution? Take a few moments to make your choice. Are you surprised to see that Kansas State was the first one created following the Morrill Act? It's interesting that Rutgers University in New Jersey claims to be the oldest, having been founded in 1766 before the Morrill Act. It actually didn't become a land-grant until after K-State. But look at this, both Michigan and Pennsylvania were the first to establish agricultural colleges with the purpose of applying scientific principles to farming. And Michigan State was actually the prototype for the land-grant system created in 1862. Colorado State University, known at the time as Colorado Agricultural and Mechanical, was founded in 1870, and the first class consisted of just 6 students. You've probably got a pretty good grasp on the land-grant part of the story, but where does extension come into the picture, and what is extension? In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Smith-Lever Act, which created cooperative extension, and the act provided federal support to these land-grant institutions for the purpose of taking educational programs out into the community. And the idea was to provide citizens practical and useful information to help improve their lives. Take a few moments to read what President Wilson thought about the Smith-Lever Act. Another goal in creating the land grants was to do research to advance our society. So agricultural experiment stations were created in 1887. In Colorado, there are still agricultural experiment stations in existence today in Fort Collins, Rocky Ford, Eastern Colorado, the San Luis Valley, Southwestern Colorado, and in Fruita and Orchard Mesa. So now let's take a look at a bit more detail of extension, which in a nutshell is an outreach program of the land-grant universities. Even more than 100 years later, Extension is still focused on bringing practical, research-based education to our communities. Here's the mission statement of CSU Extension. Take a few moments to read through it. The success of the extension system is that education is delivered in response to local needs. Extension in Colorado is divided administratively into 3 regions, shown on the map, and represented by the colors blue, green, and gold. The counties of each region may work together in educational programs, or they may work in smaller groups within the region. Counties may work on problems specific to them, or parts of each region may all work together. It depends on the need. Find your county and see what region your program belongs to. Local identification is very important. So here are a couple of ways in which county offices can identify themselves. So you might say Colorado State University, Larimer County Office, or Colorado State University, Routt County Extension. You'll notice the word cooperative is not part of our name anymore. And some states no longer use this term, and some do. CSU decided for branding and marketing purposes that they would leave out the word cooperative. Extension funding comes from 3 partners: the federal government through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Colorado State University, and the local county. Here's a pie chart that shows the approximate contribution by each of the 3 partners. The day-to-day operation of the county extension office comes from the county budget. Some staff members are funded completely by the county, others are funded by CSU Extension, and some perhaps a combination of both. CSU Extension provides education in these 11 major areas. We call them program areas. So if you go to the CSU Extension website, and the address is there on the screen, you can find information in all of these areas. So for example, if I wanted to learn about baking at high altitude, I can click on the Home, Family, and Finances link and find information about adjusting recipes. Every county extension office looks a bit different, and I don't just mean the physical structure. Remember, extension addresses the local needs. So here's an example of Larimer County's programming, and the issues around which education takes place. And it will probably look different in your county, and that's perfectly fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. Here are a couple of short video clips from Colorado Master Gardeners that tell you about what they do in their county.
Well, I work with the Colorado Center for the Blind in teaching the students there how to garden, and that is a very rewarding experience.
We're required to do so many office hours each year, and you know that's great because you'll get questions that you don't necessarily know the answer to, and it gives you the opportunity to research it out and to be able to help respond to those questions.
I mostly work at one of our demonstration gardens. We plant a lot of vegetables, and all those vegetables are donated to a food bank. It's very rewarding. This year alone, we've harvested about 1,200 pounds of vegetables.
My volunteer time in the past 13 years has been in writing for the newspaper. I've also worked with a classroom who was planting a raised garden bed for vegetables. I've also taught classes. I enjoy the soil class. I've also developed a class on houseplants. So I learned how to do PowerPoint and present the information in a way that's easily understood.
Well, I hope you've learned more about Extension, the organization for which you're going to be volunteering. We're about education. As part of Colorado State University, Master Gardeners help connect its research findings and staff to our communities. Even in the age of computers, rapid communication, and transportation, we continue to be relevant to today's world, just as was originally intended. This is the end of Module 1, and I will see you in Module 2.